Hello, I'm going to show you how to make a basic form. To get to Forms, go to New, and then go down to More, and then choose Google Forms. You can also go to forms.google.com, and if you go to forms.google.com, there's some built-in templates there for you. I always just go in through Drive. The next thing you want to do is title your form, so I'm going to title it My Basic Form. And if you just go ahead and click over here on Untitled Form, it will add in your title. Once you've done that, if you go back and change this, so if I changed it to a basic form, it will not make that change over here. You have to do it manually. So I'm going to go ahead and change that back just so they match. All right, so now I'm ready to add in questions. So you'll see there's already an untitled question right here. If I click on it, I can now add in my question. It's telling me it's a multiple choice question, and I have the option of adding in an image. I'm not going to do that. I like the first part of my form always to be information, so I'm going to have first name. And you'll notice that Google Forms changed the type of question there, so it went from multiple choice to short answer. Now I want last name, so rather than click on the plus sign and adding a question, I'm going to duplicate it. And now I'm going to choose last name. By clicking on these 6 dots right here, you can change the order of the questions around. So if you accidentally put it in the wrong order, you can just click and drag it to the correct order. Now I want to add in another question where I'm going to ask for school site. So here it's going to be a multiple choice question. I clicked on the plus side to add a question, and then now I can choose different types. This one is going to be multiple choice. So I'm going to type in school site. Anytime you're asking for information and you can give some options, give the options, because it'll be easier for sorting. So for example, here I'm just going to put the schools, the high schools in our district, and I'm going to add them in HDPA. I wouldn't want to allow them to write in Apple Valley High School because I might get some people who put Apple Valley High School, I might get some people who put AVHS, I might get some people who put Apple. So I just want to tell them what I want them to pick. So now I've got 3 basic questions here. While you're in this first section, there's some other things that you can do up here. First, you can change the color palette. Any of these, it'll change it for you. If you click on the preview button, if you click on the image button, you can choose different themes here. Some of these are pretty fancy. It's a little bit hard to tell right there, but the picnic basket, there's a little bit of wind blowing. I'm just going to leave mine. I'm going to change it to orange for our school, and then my entire form will change. Up here, this preview button will give you a preview of your form, so if you want to see how it looks to the end user, make sure that you click on that to just kind of see how it looks. And then we have the setting gears. Before we go on to talk about the settings here, I just want to note you can make each one of these questions required by toggling over this required button. So I click on the question, you can see over here it's blue, so I know I'm editing this question, toggle over, and now these are required questions and nobody will be able to go on if they have not answered those questions. When I click on the preview button, you'll see now that there's an asterisk there. If you have more than one section on your form and you can't go to the next section, double check that you haven't required any of that, because if you've required it, you won't be able to go on and preview it without inputting an answer. So I'm going to go back here so that we can just quickly go over the settings. So when you have a managed group, if you are in a managed domain, so if your school uses Forms or your school uses G Suite for education, you're going to need to unrestrict this if you want it to go out to anyone. I also recommend that you unrestrict this if you are going to be using this with anyone with a phone. Google Forms works kind of weird on phones, so it's just easier to unrestrict it. They're not going to be able to get to your form unless you give them the address. You also have the option here to collect email addresses, limit to one response, or edit all of these. Next is the presentation. So if you have a really long form, you can open it and show progress board. That'll give them a thing down here that says they're 10%, 11%, 12% done. You can also shuffle the question order. That would be within a section so that people saw different orders of questions. Then you can also show a link to submit another response, particularly if it's something that people are going to submit over and over. One thing that is important is you can customize your confirmation message. This is what people see when they finish your form. So this one's pretty generic. Your response has been recorded. I like to put something that's a little bit more personal, so I might put thank you for filling out our form. And then it's nice to tell people what you want them to do next. So in this example, I might say someone will be in contact with you soon. and then visit our webpage, and you can put that, and it'll be hyperlinked when people see it at the end. It's always nice to tell them where you want them to go next. If you were going to make this into a quiz, this is where you would do it. Toggle over on this quiz. There'll be a whole separate video on the quizzes. So now I'm going to save all of these. You can see my presentation still in there. I'm going to save it. So now when people submit my form, they're going to see something a little bit different. One other thing over here, this is where you would add collaborators, and if you needed to make a copy of this, you could. You can also set preferences for all of your forms. So if you by default want to collect email addresses, you can. And if you want to by default make questions required, you can. The default point value is 0, which makes no sense for a quiz, so you might want to change that if you're going to make things a quiz. All right, so this is my basic forms. Now, you have a place for responses. When you have forms with responses, there's nothing here, but when you click on this responses tab, it'll take you here and it'll tell you that you're accepting responses or not, so you can toggle this off, and that will mean that you are no longer accepting responses if you don't want anyone else to respond. I'm going to toggle it back on. If I had responses in here, they would show up here and there would be graphs. It's a lot easier. A lot of times you want to decide you're going to need to do a lot more things with the data, so you're going to want to create a sheet. When you click on this green button right here, it's going to create a Google spreadsheet, and now it's going to name it the exact same thing as my form. So my form is called My Basic Form, and this is called My Basic Form Responses. You can also select an existing spreadsheet. So if you want to have multiple forms feed the same spreadsheet, you can. You can just click here and then select, and it's going to ask me to click a spreadsheet. I don't even know if I have any in here. So here I would click on that spreadsheet, and I could pick which one I wanted to go to. In this case, I want it just to go to my basic form. One thing to know, if you're going to move your questions around, you need to create the spreadsheet after you have the order you want it created. If you create the spreadsheet and then you add a question later and you add it at the top, that question is always going to appear at the far right of your spreadsheet. So that is the very basics of a Google form.